Hello and welcome to Annex Cloud Market Movers, where we bring in experts and luminaries. Today, I'm very excited to bring in Jorge Baron. He is the GM of Customer Experience for Latin America at SAP. Jorge, welcome to the discussion.
Hi, how are you doing all? Thanks for the invitation, and it's a pleasure for me to be able to share this space with you or your followers.
Wonderful, wonderful. So, Jorge, a lot has happened over the last few months. You are based in Latin America. You are right in the middle of it as we are recording this. From a business standpoint specifically, we've been hit by a massive wave of change, especially in the world that we all live in, especially in the world of customer experience and digital transformation. You know, as it pertains to Latin America, I guess the first piece I wanted to just get your viewpoints on is Latin America as compared to some other regions in the world, as it pertains to customer experience and digital transformation, has a little bit to catch up on. It's a little bit behind the times, but now with this new challenges that we are all facing, it's being pushed to the forefront. What are you seeing in Latin America as you speak today? What are the challenges that people are seeing? Maybe we can start there.
I guess you're absolutely right. I mean, we were a little bit delayed in many things regarding the digital transformation and the way companies interact with their consumers and the way consumers were expecting to interact with companies. But with the corona in place and everything that is happening now, most of the consumers are used to start working in a digital way. Everything is turning more digital. And what we're seeing is that most of the companies that had a digital platform to be able to get in relationship with customer consumers and so on are in a better position to survive during this crisis. And moving forward to the new normal that we believe it's going to be here to stay, they're going to be able to participate in a different way. So I do believe it's a time where most of the companies will have to do a quick catch up, as you were mentioning, because most of the people got used to stay at home, not to get out, and to find new ways to buy and interact with companies. So definitely we'll have to speed up to get in the timing and the needs most companies and consumers have right now. And I would say many companies are looking at it as we speak on how to start working in that process.
Good. So, in terms of catching up, I mean, one of the biggest things that people are thinking about when they think about roadmap, what do they have to build in catching up? It's not the exact same thing. I mean, there is a little bit of a roadmap created by some other regions that may be able to be followed. But at the same time, the same exact roadmap won't work because the region is a very unique region and it presents its own set of unique opportunities and it presents its own set of unique challenges. So, from your perspective, can you tell us a little bit about how differently you may apply the blueprint that may be available from other regions? What can you use, but what do you have to think about changing?
Absolutely agree with you. I mean, every region and within the region, every country is not the same than the other. And there are specifics for every market within the region. Of course, if we want to do the same things you've got in US, you've got in Europe, or you've got in Asia, it's going to be different. One of the key things now is to start identifying the customers and consumers and building a relationship from a digital point of view. I mean, for example, which things are different? Right now, we already have a shopping cart in many places. We're starting to build these relationships, but in Latin America, I don't know if you know, but we're heavy users of WhatsApp. So WhatsApp is something we need to have in place. Other thing you need to be aware of, most of the people access internet through smartphones, not that much into a computer. So you need to build things that are based on smartphones. The way you start building the relationship in loyalty terms is different depending on each country. I mean, if you want more based on points and economic retribution, or building communities, or how you work in those communities. So I would say the roadmap has to be adapted per country. Most of the countries look quite alike if you compare it in general, but they have specifics in each of them. And the other thing we also need to be aware of is in this relationship, there's also differences on the way you can deliver products and services because of the post office or the way you can get the logistics to it. So overall, what I would say in this roadmap, you need to understand which are the channels that are more oftenly used in Latin America. I would say Instagram, like rest of the world, it's okay. Facebook is a big player still now. Uh, WhatsApp is a key digital way to communicate, and how you build these loyalty programs is going to be key on the relationship you can build in digital platforms moving forward.
Great. And you mentioned loyalty programs and loyalty in general. I mean, overall, because of the times in the next few years, retention is going to be very paramount. A lot of these people a lot of the companies have to restart almost, right? They have to rebuild,
Yes.
re-earn the trust of their customer, reacquire them, as we call it, so to speak. And so loyalty and retention in general terms, not just loyalty programs, but retention as a whole is a
No.
big consideration probably for some of these companies. Any thoughts around that broadly?
Yes, I mean, when I was speaking about loyalty, I meant in general terms. And at least from my point of view, it's quite simple in the long run. I mean, before the crisis, there were things you did online and things you did physically. And they are not exactly the same things, and you don't act the same way in the different channels. That's common business for everyone, everywhere. We don't act the same way in a store than online. So I could agree with you, you need to rebuild, or more than rebuild, build from scratch these relationships again in new channels. I mean, when you're getting a new channel, this omni-channel view, you need to rebuild it from a different point of view because the weight of a new channel is heavier. So the way you build it around it is completely different. First thing you want to do in this roadmap is to try to identify who your customers are in this new paradigm, because you're going to be having different kind of customers coming from different places now than the ones you had from the store. So you need to start identifying. And from then on, you need to start building the relationship and understanding how you build this loyalty process with what they need in this new scenario, which is not the same things you had in the past in the stores and so on. So I quite agree with you. It's nearly starting from scratch with new rules of engagement between consumers and companies, because the weight in the omni-channel bandwidth is different now.
Great. And then when you go broader to customer experience as a whole, you mentioned there's a couple of things that apply. Loyalty, obviously, but identification of that customer is very important.
Mhm.
What other parts of customer experience, that you think will be accelerated? And specifically, maybe we can even talk about commerce, B2B versus
Wow.
B2C, two very, very uniquely different things that people have to consider. What aspects of customer experience you think will be accelerated, and then how will it apply to B2B versus B2C according to you?
I mean, commerce, if you see the numbers on commerce, what you find out is that the amount of transactions went extremely higher, definitely. I would say it went like 3 times what we had. We had like a 200% growth in the amount of transactions. But on the other hand, what ended up happening is that the average transaction size grew, but not that much. I mean, the ticket, the volume that it's being bought online, it's like 70-80% bigger, which I mean, the amount of transactions grew more than the ticket size. The ticket size is lower. So that's one thing. What is happening with commerce is there's lots of visiting right now. The investments are getting higher on how you attract people to your sites. It's going to be impacted in B2B and B2C. One of the key topics we're seeing now is how you solve the delivery of it, because that's the other part which is getting complex. I mentioned a couple of minutes ago, one of the key topics is is how you get together with what you bought, the delivery system. One of the things we're looking at is the pickup at store, that it's getting more traction now. It wasn't that common, and we're starting to work on it, and it's ramping up really fast. This is quite similar on what happened in US and Europe during the crisis, but I do believe it's going to be something where we're looking at stores being more of a pickup station than a store itself. And we believe that's going to be staying in the long run. So the other thing is, most of the companies are finding out that it's not only about having a shopping cart online and that's it. It's getting more complex than that, because you need to have platforms that really support you and that help you have the dynamics you need to have in this new market. And I would say it applies first more to the B2C side, what we're looking at. And I do believe there's going to be a second wave into the B2B. And this is quite common, because usually everything that happens, it starts with B2C and then it moves into B2B. And right now, in the middle of the crisis, what got accelerated was how to get in contact with my customers and consumers. But the second wave is how we start building the relationships between companies, that it's going to be online too. I would say the impact now of the crisis in the B2B side is more based on how we get together in meetings than the actual order taking and so on. But it's moving forward to that too. So I would say the B2B impact, we'll see it in 6 months from now. That's my guess. The B2C is right now.
It's happening right now. Absolutely. And if what is your advice to execs that are at these companies that are thinking about, transformation, and you've got one side of companies that are heavily impacted by it, their employees, their team members, maybe even their families, they're all impacted by the crisis. And on the other side, there are companies that are, for example, grocery, where they are getting some volume, maybe they're more volume than before. They're impacted operationally in a maybe positive way from a business standpoint, but operationally, a lot of things are being ripped apart. What is your advice when they think about, transformation, think about new initiatives, think about growth? How do they balance the challenges operationally with thinking about, what they need to plan for the future, whether it's in the short term and the rest of 2020 or 2021 and beyond?
I would say there's a couple of things. The first one I would stand up for is, don't try to build what you have exactly the same in a digital way. That's not going to work. I mean, there's lots of companies trying to figure out to do exactly the same they were doing 6 months ago, but now digital. That's not the way to look at it. I mean, digital is digital. We were forced to use digital, but we use digital in a digital way. We don't use it, the physical transform into digital. That would be the main thing on it. And That's what we as consumer users or whatever are expecting. So we need to think the rules in the new setting, not the old setting transformed in a new place and that's it. That would be the key thing we need to look at. The other thing is, that said, I mean, if you need to do delivery, you need to figure out which is the delivery you need to have in this new setting, and you need to build it for it. And for example, if you were selling home supplies, okay, I used to have it in the store and that's it. So you pick it down there and it was easy. Well, now you need to figure out that if you said 24 hours, it has to be 24 hours. You need to keep the promise. There are new rules you need to find and understand and commit to them on keeping the promise that you need to keep the investment on it. And that's a key thing you need to start thinking of and investing on. And we were discussing a couple of days ago with some colleagues, and what I do believe it's key in this new arena is that you need to understand that you don't need to be strong or intelligent or fast. You need to be able to adapt. That's a key topic. I mean, it's not about being stronger. It's about how you adapt easier and you understand how you need to move in this new environment. So my key recommendation would be start by thinking in the new model and adapt. Don't try to get stuck in the past because you were happy in that scenario and you were in a good position, because the only thing I can tell you is that's not there any longer. So you need to adapt to the new world and think in the new setting. And that's something that it's been a little bit tough for some organizations, but the ones that move fast down there, I believe are going to be key on it. And once again, look at the topics you need to take care of in this new environment, not with the old point of view.
Love it. There's two really important points. Take a new lens to the equation, look at it very differently, and adapt. Those are two very, very great messages. Jorge, just last thing that some people may not fully understand the breadth of Latin America and the differences that apply in the region. You mentioned in the very beginning, right? There's several countries, there's, different ways of doing business in its own way. Could you give people an idea a little bit about the different countries and
Yeah.
how you think differently within the different regions within Latin America?
Okay, just to make it simple, I would first mention 5 or 6 countries which are quite known worldwide, but they're completely different by themselves.
Yep.
I mean, and that would give you an idea. We've got Colombia. What do we know about Colombia? Music. We've got Mexico. We know mariachis, and we've got a different setting on Colombia. I mean, Shakira is not the same than the mariachis. Nothing to do with it. And they are both Latin American countries. You've got Brazil. We've got the carnival. We've got the soccer. We've got the rodízio, or the Brazilian restaurants we all know, which is completely different from Mexican and completely different from Colombian. We've got Chile, which is more a European country, which is completely different, and we've got different settings. So to begin with, we've got different languages, we've got different sizes. Latin America is quite big. We've got different cultures, even though we are all Latin, but there are different cultures and ways to see things. So basically, it's a wide variety of different populations. If you want to see from the history point of view, you've got the Mayas, you've got the Aztecs, you've got the Incas, and they were completely different. I mean, it's not all the same in terms of history. So from that point of view, it's quite spread, it's quite different. We're quite alike because our roots are all Latin, but we've adapted in a different way. In terms of population, Latin America right now is around 700 million people throughout the region, which is dominant by Brazil, then Mexico, and then you've got countries which get smaller, but it's quite big. And the other thing is that the culture is quite of getting together and quite sensitive to hanging around together and celebrating and so on. So the impact we're having on these quarantines and those kind of things is really hard. I don't know if that gives you a kind of picture on where we're standing.
It definitely does, definitely does. And I think, as you said, it's a culture that just works well together as people, but and also shopping, when we talk about it, it's a very personal
Yeah,
experience.
yeah,
And
yeah.
it's a very personal experience, and so some of this will be a personal shift for many people over time as well as we progress. Jorge, this was a great discussion. I think a great overview. I'm sure we will talk more and dive deeper as the months progress and you see more. But I wish you, much kind of health and safety as your region goes through these challenges. And thank you so much for spending some time with us today and imparting some advice on how you are approaching the situation.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for letting me share with you what we're looking at in Latin America. I mean, we're passionate about everything down here. We're passionate people, and we're gonna get through this one. And I guess everything is gonna be better in a couple of months. So thanks a lot for letting me share, and we'll keep in touch.
Sounds good. Perfect. Thank you much. Bye for now.
Thank you.